The sirens hit first loud enough to shake the maple trees lining the bright, leafy street. I was kneeling at the duplex door, swapping out a deadbolt, when 2 patrol cars skidded to a stop in a spray of sunlight and dust. Then she burst out. Karen Whitfield, neon visor, glitter sneakers, bracelets clattering like wind chimes, came sprinting from behind a hydrangea bush. Phone raised, yelling, "He's breaking in, I've got him on camera," birds scattered. Neighbors peeked through their porches, shaded by climbing ivy. I didn't move. I just held up the manila folder as the officer approached and watched Karen's smile collapse when she saw the first page, because she had no idea who I really was. Karen Whitfield wasn't just an HOA enforcer. She was a full-color spectacle wrapped in chaos. The first time she actually faced me, really faced me, she stepped out from behind her mailbox like a game show contestant making a dramatic entrance. Neon teal visor, sequined fanny pack, leggings loud enough to trigger migraines. The woman sparkled under the morning sun, standing in the middle of a lush, tree-lined street, as if the whole neighborhood were her stage, and she acted like it. Her sunglasses were so oversized they looked like they were searching for satellite signals. Her lips pinched, tight chin, lifted arms, crossed with theatrical precision, as if she'd practiced this pose in the mirror before storming out. "You need to stop whatever you're doing," she snapped, voice trembling with a mix of fear and authority she hadn't earned. "This is private property." I told her it was my property. She laughed like I just told her gravity was optional. Karen's defining trait wasn't attitude. It was certainty that she knew the rules owned the rules and was the rules. She'd lived on this leafy block for 12 years, long enough to convince herself she was the guardian of the neighborhood's purity. Anyone new, different, or, God forbid, unapproved by her imaginary standards was automatically a threat. And when reality challenged her, she didn't adjust, she attacked. That day, her eyes flicked from my screwdriver, to my skin color, to her phone. I saw the moment she decided I didn't belong, and that decision was about to turn our quiet, tree-shaded street into a battleground. I didn't buy the duplex on Maple Ridge Court because it was glamorous. I bought it because it made sense. Solid structure, quiet street, tall trees that formed a shaded arch over the road, and a price that practically whispered someone's fed up with this HOA. Most investors ran from listings with community disputes buried in the notes. I ran toward them. Problems meant leverage, and I dealt with every variety of property drama imaginable. Maple Ridge felt like a break, a place where I could do a straightforward renovation on Unit A, keep the long-term tenant in Unit B steady, and turn the property into a reliable corner of my portfolio. My plan was simple: replace old fixtures, repaint, update the kitchen, get the lawn under control, and rent to someone who appreciated peace. On paper, it was the cleanest project I'd taken in years. I drove in that first week, soaking in the scene, the blooming dogwoods, the scent of fresh-cut grass, the rows of bright hydrangeas at each front porch. It felt like the kind of neighborhood where people waved from their driveways and complained about squirrels, not each other. But the listing agent's warning echoed in my mind. The current tenant can be involved. In real estate, involved usually meant high maintenance. I'd handled that before. Still, nothing prepared me for her version of involvement. My first few days on the property should have been easy: me and my toolbox, birds singing in the trees, the soft hum of lawn sprinklers down the block. I worked quietly, kept to myself, and made sure every improvement stayed within the bylaws. I double-checked the HOA handbook just to avoid drama. The place may have been overgrown, but it had potential. I actually felt excited. Then came the moment when the piece cracked. A shadow fell across the door frame while I swapped out the old deadbolt. I looked up expecting a curious neighbor. Instead, I found neon leggings, glitter, and a scowl sharp enough to split bark. Karen Whitfield didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask if I needed help. She didn't even breathe normally. She just stood there against the backdrop of bright greenery, sunlight shimmering on sequins, and declared with full confidence, "You don't belong here." That was when I realized I hadn't inherited just a property. I had inherited a war zone disguised as a cul-de-sac, and the general lived 10 feet away. The piece didn't fade slowly, it snapped. The morning after the police incident, I walked back into the shaded driveway, leaves rustling overhead like the trees were whispering warnings. Sunlight filtered through branches, casting moving patterns across the duplex. It should have felt calm. Instead, a note waited under my windshield wiper, flapping in the gentle breeze. "People like you ruin neighborhoods." No signature, just aggressive cursive that looked like each letter was fighting the others for dominance. Classic Karen handwriting. I took a photo, filed it away, and kept moving. But she didn't stop there. By noon, a red marker sign was taped to Unit A's door. This neighborhood has standards. No solicitors. No unregistered business activity. A squirrel ran past and startled her as she watched me from behind a blooming hydrangea bush, pretending to inspect her plants while whisper recording into her phone. "He's still loitering. I'm documenting this." I waved. She dropped her phone like she'd been caught by the FBI. It was petty, irritating, pathetic, but it was only the opening volley. 2 days later, the green quiet of Maple Ridge Court barely held together. Karen began leaving her yard, no invading mine. Every time I stepped outside, she materialized in some garish new outfit. Lime green visor glitter sneakers, star-shaped earrings, swinging like she was preparing for a circus audition. My contractor parked with one wheel touching the grass. By afternoon, the HOA emailed me a violation complaint with a photo taken at a creepy angle. The file name, grass_crime1.jpeg. Only one person in this neighborhood would name it that. Later, I caught her crouched behind my recycling bin, rummaging like a raccoon in pastel athleisure. Looking for something, I asked, sipping a soda. She leaped back. "You're violating disposal regulations. Plastic caps go in a separate container." She held up a bottle cap like it was a murder weapon. "Great," I said. "Sort the whole bin for me. I trust your dedication." She stormed off, bracelets clinking angrily. Then she began stepping into the shared backyard, pacing my property line, filming workers narrating like a Discovery Channel host, documenting criminals. She wasn't testing boundaries, she was erasing them. By the end of the week, Maple Ridge's lush lawns and peaceful breeze meant nothing. Karen had turned my renovation into a slow bleed. 3 official HOA notices arrived in the mail, each more ridiculous than the last $200. Fine. Improper parking. 1 tire on grass. Violation exterior clutter. A ladder leaning for 10 minutes. Warning. Non-approved decorative signage. My welcome mat come back with tacos. I almost respected the level of delusion required to criminalize tacos. But the first real hit landed Friday morning. My contractor called sounding both confused and exhausted. Your side gate's blocked." I arrived to find 2 overstuffed garbage bins wedged so tightly against the gate you'd think they'd been cemented there. Coffee grounds, wilted lettuce, and old magazines spilled around them like a compost crime scene. I checked the cameras. 613 AM. There she was in flamingo pink pajamas, dragging the bins with the determination of someone relocating ancient treasure. She paused halfway to glare directly into the lens before shoving the last bin into place. I saved the clip, Karen. Trash.mov. Work was delayed 2 hours. My contractor billed me for wasted time. That morning was the first moment I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not frustration. Strategy. Once Karen realized her little stunts weren't breaking me, she escalated with a tool she felt she mastered: official intervention. The HOA hotline logs must have looked like a spam bot had targeted my address. Complaints poured in about unsafe contractor behavior, suspicious mail activities, and my personal favorite, stalking tendencies. I hadn't even walked past her porch. Then came the city inspector. He arrived with a clipboard apologetic, saying a noise and safety complaint had been filed. He checked my side, nothing. Not even a loose screw. But when he glanced at Karen's porch, exposed wiring, leaning grill, half-broken fairy lights tangled around a dying potted fern like a crime scene. He issued her a warning. Her face twisted when she realized the breeze hadn't blown those issues into existence. It was her own negligence, exposed by her own complaint. Meanwhile, an HOA admin quietly admitted on the phone, most of these complaints, they originate from the same person. Pattern recognized. Lines drawn. Game on. The turning point came like a quiet snap. Longtime owners, exhausted by Karen's chaos, quietly sold their voting shares. I bought them. Not loudly, not triumphantly, just strategically. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy she hated. I was someone with authority. But she didn't know that yet. What she did know was that rent was due, and she refused to pay it. "I don't recognize your authority as landlord," she announced, slapping my notice off her door and replacing it with a handwritten counter notice, accusing me of harassment, extortion, and bizarrely improper hose storage. I served her the legal 15-day pay or quit. She tore it in half on camera. Then she organized a community resistance rally in her backyard. 3 people came. 1 was her sister, 1 left after 5 minutes, and 1 was a DoorDash driver who stayed for chips. A city health inspector showed up after a noise complaint. This time, Karen received 2 violation warnings, But the final break came in the basement. While checking an old storage closet with my contractor, we found a false panel. Behind it, boxes of unreported HOA cash receipts she had collected for years. Thousands. Unlogged, hidden, illegal. I closed the lid slowly. The war wasn't coming. It had already arrived. The HOA meeting took place on a Thursday evening in the Maple Ridge Community Hall, a beige box of a room tucked behind blooming dogwoods and a row of manicured shrubs. The sun was dipping behind tall maple trees, scattering warm gold across the windows. For once, the neighborhood felt peaceful. Inside, not so much. I walked in with a calm confidence and a folder tucked under my arm. A few board members gave small nods. They already knew what was coming. The room buzzed with low murmurs and the faint smell of someone's citrus hand sanitizer. Then, the door swung open. Karen Whitfield burst in like a character, making a late entrance in a soap opera. Neon sunflower yellow leggings, sequined jacket, sunglasses the size of satellite dishes even indoors. Her bangles clattered as she slammed her glittery water bottle onto the table. She spotted me and froze. What is he doing here?" she snapped. Board President Hale cleared his throat. "Karen, please take a seat. We're beginning. We're not beginning anything until he leaves." Hale didn't blink. "Actually, Karen, tonight we're welcoming our newest board member." He nodded toward me. "Mr. Carter holds 15% voting shares." Karen blinked like she'd just been slapped by daylight. "He's what?" Every leaf outside seemed to stop rustling just to hear the moment her kingdom cracked. Her outrage barely settled before Hale shifted the agenda. Next item, excessive and frivolous complaints filed by Miss Whitfield. You could feel the energy in the room turn like a breeze, changing direction. Karen launched to her feet. "This is harassment. I opened my folder." Madam Secretary Hale said gently, "Please log this for the record." I placed the first photo on the table, her angry note about people like you. Then the red marker door sign. Then screenshots of her anonymous complaint emails, all with suspiciously similar phrasing. Karen's mouth fell open. "This is taken out of context." I clicked my tablet. On the screen behind us, the projector displayed the video, Karen, Trash.mov. At 6:13 a.m., in flamingo pink pajamas, she dragged garbage bins across my lawn and wedged them against the gate, pausing dramatically to stare into the camera like a villain breaking the fourth wall. Gasps. A few stifled laughs. Hale cleared his throat. "And now, Mr. Carter, the financial records." I lifted a dusty shoebox. Karen visibly paled. "These," I said, "were discovered behind a false panel in the shared basement. Cash payments from residents. HOA dues. Not logged. Some from as far back as 2018. The room erupted. Shock, murmurs, betrayal. Karen's voice cracked. "Those were donations, voluntary donations, for community upkeep," No Hale said softly. "They were receipts. Receipts with her handwriting." She sank slowly into her chair, sequins trembling. The vote wasn't close. 6-1. Karen was formally censured for harassment, barred indefinitely from filing unverified complaints, removed from any HOA-related decision-making, and referred for legal review over the unreported cash. Her glittery world collapsed, one rule at a time. As Hale read the decision, she stood, fists shaking. "You're all blind. He's manipulating you. He's dangerous. Karen Hale said calmly, "Please sit." But she didn't. She stormed out, sequins, flashing bracelets ringing like panicked bells. The door slammed so hard, a framed photo rattled off its hook. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. By Saturday morning, the local news had the story. Someone on the block leaked the entire saga. A 2-minute segment titled "HOA Bully Tries to Evict Her Landlord Backfires Spectacularly." Clips from her 911 call. Screenshots of the notes. A freeze frame of her mid-trash drag. The internet did the rest. By Monday, she was a meme. By Tuesday, her accounting firm placed her on leave. By Wednesday, her job was gone. And on Friday, the sheriff taped the eviction notice to her door, while cardinals chirped loudly in the maple branches above. Karen stood on her porch in glitter slippers, staring at the paper like it was written in a foreign language. "He's really kicking me out," she whispered. She still didn't realize the downfall wasn't because of me. It was because of her. Her choices. Her lies. Her obsession with control. And now, finally, she'd lost it all. When the sheriff's cruiser rolled onto Maple Ridge Court, the morning sun was just breaking through the canopy of oak and maple trees. Light spilled across the lawns like warm gold, catching on the fresh mulch and the soft dew sitting on hydrangea petals. It was the kind of quiet, perfect morning this neighborhood was built for. A shame Karen was experiencing it from the wrong side of an eviction notice. I stood in the front yard trimming a hydrangea bush, the electric trimmer humming steadily, while the sheriff explained the process. Karen hovered in the doorway wrapped in a sparkly robe that looked like it had fought a disco ball and lost. Her hair was flattened on one side, her eyeliner smeared her mouth opening and closing without forming any full words. "You can collect anything not attached to the property," the sheriff told her. "You'll have supervised access for 30 minutes. Karen glared at me like I'd personally turned her world upside down. "You're ruining this neighborhood," she snapped, voice cracking. I clipped one more dead bloom and said softly, "No, Karen, I'm saving it." She sputtered for several seconds, then stomped back inside to pack whatever she could. The glitter on her slippers caught the early sun blinking like a broken signal light. The movers arrived soon after, two exhausted guys who looked like they'd been warned. They stepped inside, paused, and exchanged a look that said, "We're not getting paid enough for this." Karen barked orders while they wrestled with stacks of mismatched bins and bags, half of which were stuffed with old HOA newsletters she apparently couldn't part with. Across the street, the neighborhood began to stir. People peeked through blinds. Dogs barked. A couple strolled by a little slower than usual, pretending to walk their golden retriever while very obviously watching the show. The lush green street, usually so calm, hummed with barely contained relief. When the U-Haul finally pulled away, something amazing happened. The block exhaled. A woman 2 doors down stepped outside with a tray of cookies. A guy in a flannel shirt produced a bottle of champagne from nowhere. Kids drew chalk art on the sidewalk, big rainbow letters spelling "Bye Karen." A few neighbors clustered near the big maple tree at the corner, laughing quietly like they were attending the world's politest victory parade. Maple Ridge Court hadn't looked this alive in months. Over the next week, order returned with shocking speed. No trash mysteriously appeared. No violation letters landed in my mailbox. No neon leggings lurked behind shrubbery. The air itself felt lighter, as if the leaves had stopped bracing for impact, and finally relaxed back into the wind. Then my new tenants moved in, Marcus and Tasha, 2 teachers who stepped out of their sedan carrying brownies and beaming smiles. They wandered through the freshly renovated unit like it was a dream, touching the clean countertops, admiring the view of the green backyard, inhaling deeply the smell of new paint. "Any HOA problems we should know about?" Tasha whispered. I laughed. "Not anymore." Life settled. Some afternoons I'd sit on the porch beneath the big maple tree, sipping iced tea and listening to the birds. The neighborhood felt like it had been reset to its factory settings, peaceful, welcoming green. Then the podcast episode dropped. The producers had reached out after the local news segment went viral. They wanted the full story, the cops, the trash bins, the basement receipts, the memes. I gave them everything: audio clips, security footage, photocopies of her handwritten complaints. The host laughed so hard we had to stop recording twice. Within a week, the episode hit 1 million streams. Messages flooded my inbox. Strangers thanking me for standing up to their worst nightmare, landlords sharing their own horror stories, HOA members admitting they'd seen people like Karen and never knew how to stop them. One afternoon, a man walked up my driveway. Cropped gray hair, slight limp, kind eyes. "You Malik?" he asked. "Yeah." He shook my hand. "I'm Karen's ex-husband." We sat under the maple tree, sharing iced tea, while he told me what 12 years with her had been like. The micromanaging, the obsession with rules, the belief that the neighborhood was her kingdom. "You did what no one else could," he said. "You held her accountable." I didn't feel proud, just done, lighter. Weeks passed peaceful and steady, until the black SUV showed up. It rolled slowly down the street, tires crunching gravel, sunlight bouncing off the polished hood. It pulled into the driveway of the house across from mine, a house that had been empty for months. Karen stepped out, same oversized sunglasses, same stiff ponytail, same posture like she owned the pavement. She looked around, surveying the green leafy street, like a general returning to a battlefield. She didn't see me. Not yet. I leaned back in my porch chair, sipping iced tea. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed. "Hey, Steve," I said, when the HOA president answered. "Guess who just bought the house across from mine?" A long groan. "You're kidding." I smiled at the woman across the street. "Not even a little," I said. "And the best part? She has no idea the LLC that bought that house is mine." The breeze rustled the leaves overhead. The sequel had already begun.